So it looks like former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy has come out of the woodwork to give his opinion on the trial of the Great Orange Man.
And I get it, the verdict has just come in, and the question is, should it even have gone to trial? The majority of Americans understand that if Donald Trump did not run for president, this never would have gone for trial. The DA before decided not to do this. The Department of Justice decided not to do this. The FEC said there was no problem. You have a statute of limitations. You have a judge that wasn't selected at random, was actually selected. You tried it in the second most Biden county in the entire nation. You have the rulings within the judge to the instructions to the jury, which people continue to question. So is it politically motivated? Yes, it is.
But still, the end of the result is still a conviction, right? So
would I argue this is politically motivated? Absolutely. Because no one in power has ever been this scrutinized other than Donald Trump. Originally, these were all going to be misdemeanor charges, but they did some lawfare and actually put them up to a felony. The system just does not like Donald Trump. And I think that's why Donald Trump even has a bunch of support to begin with, because people can see that the corrupt political class and the elites in this country hate Donald Trump. And the reason they hate Donald Trump is they don't want Donald Trump to be the face of the United States. I personally don't like Donald Trump, but I can definitely see the hypocrisy of going after him because people are looking at it in totality. Once this verdict came down, first thing people were saying is, okay, we're going after George W. Bush next, right? There are people who are obviously in power the system will never go after, but they're just going after Donald Trump. And people see this. What about all the other crimes the other presidents have committed and no one ever saw a day in court? It's only Donald Trump who needs to be held accountable. We'll have to wait and see whatever the political fallout is from this, but Donald Trump has raised millions of dollars off this verdict. Often the candidate who raises the most money ends up winning whatever political position it is.
12 Americans on a jury did come to that decision. And yes, it's firing up the base. But what about independent voters? What about the suburban voters who are going to be so critical there? Are you not concerned that this could turn off women voters, for instance?
No, see, I think this is the part that CNN is missing. This is a re-election of Joe Biden for president. An NPR poll says that the majority of Americans, 53% to 42%, of just independents, not Republicans or Democrats, believe another 4 years of Joe Biden is a threat to democracy. Joe Biden is running on democracy's on the ballot, Biden economics. These are the two driving things that people are opposed to. Do people want 4 more years of this? This is where people are missing really what is going on with the American public. They're concerned about the border.
So you're basically saying this is not going to matter to voters come November. Not as much as those other
I'll
issues.
put an asterisk there because it's still new. People will have some concerns about it, but it's not going to determine this election. I think at the end of the day, Democrats have overplayed their hand. And it happens in world history. When someone persecutes a political enemy simply because they're a political enemy, it usually backfires on them and it creates a movement.
I think what the American people see, we have had presidents in recent history who have had sex scandals. Bill Clinton, JFK. You know, listening to some political commentators, they're like, it's done. Joe Biden's going to win now. I wouldn't be too sure about that. And speaking on that poll about people think that Joe Biden's a bigger threat to democracy, we have evidence to actually support this. The DNC canceled multiple primaries where Joe Biden actually had real opponents, Marianne Williamson, Dean Phillips. And even Dean Phillips apologized to Bernie Sanders and he says this is like how elections are run in Iran, where they just shut down the election and just declare the other person the victor. I don't know how the Democrats can spin this and say, hey, we're here to actually save democracy. Donald Trump wants to end democracy. Number one, you look like massive hypocrites. Number two, I would argue both the Republicans and the Democrats hate democracy. I don't even think we really live in a democracy anymore. It's just an oligarchy with pre-selected choices from millionaires and billionaires. And that's why people are turning to Donald Trump, because they think he's the reset button. I would argue the only real reset button we had was Ron Paul. But the American people passed on Ron Paul, and honestly, I think we kind of deserve Donald Trump. And the Democrats can't run a campaign to save their lives anymore, because simply saying Donald Trump's bad is not a compelling campaign message.
Just the underlying allegations of this trial. Look, he allegedly paid off a porn star to keep an extramarital affair quiet.
People put it in perspective. Was this politically motivated that you even took him to court about this? The answer is overwhelmingly yes.
I wanted you to listen to what your predecessor, Paul Ryan, says about the former president.
I understand the binary argument. It's a reasonable argument. I just don't agree with that argument. Character is too important to me. And it's a job that requires the kind of character that he just doesn't have.
To hear him say character is a big deal for him blows my mind. We've had presidents turn a blind eye to genocide, and I'm not even talking about the one that may or may not be happening in Gaza. Saddam Hussein gassed the Kurds and later was ruled committing genocide against his own people. And this was a time when Donald Rumsfeld shook his hand. The moral character of presidents. I think if you're going to be president, I think you have to accept you're going to do horrible things in the name of the security state in this country. Whether that's drone striking and killing civilians, invading countries to get natural resources for our corporations, cooing other governments we don't like. But if you pay off a porn star, well, you gotta be held accountable.